Obviously, our clock is slowly coming to an end here, but as you know, the whole idea is to kind of help people get out of this trap, as you call it. So if you were to give people a process or like a blueprint that they can follow to break out of that perfectionistic trap, what would that process be? Like, how would it look? Like, what should people do if they want to slowly get out of that?
Perfect. I'll give you a concrete process, but before I do that, I'm going to also just comment to what you just mentioned. You know,
No problem.
our inner world creates our outer world. And so when we buy into the social media that you need this, you need that, you need this to be successful, beautiful, popular, successful, accomplished, what we're doing is we're having external validate our internal. And so every time we're putting something outside of us as more important than ourselves on the inside, you will be constantly driven by people's standards that you feel like you have to meet in order to be good enough. And the truth is, again, what you need and what you want is about you going inwards and saying, do I really need this to feel good enough? Do I really need this to be smart enough? Do I really need this to be accomplished enough? It's about you going inwards. If you're looking outwards, you're going to buy that gimmick, you're going to buy that sparkly object, you're going to work really hard to accomplish, you're going to sacrifice sleep and everything because everybody in your office is doing it. If you're doing external validating internal, you will always be sick because you're disconnected from yourself on the inside. But when you go inwards, you realize, I don't need that shirt to look pretty. I don't need that job and overworking like everybody else is in order to be healthy. And you'll start creating a standard that works for you. Each and every one of us have a different balance of what is healthy for us. And sometimes, it's a means to a goal. I take it up a notch for a month or two and then I bring it down. But I got to go inwards and listen to my body, my symptoms, my health, my well-being. So for the rest of you who are not always going inwards and meditating or really working on how do I be a better version, and you're stuck on that rat race of the hamster on the wheel, go, 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 and are so stuck in that perfectionism thought that you need something to get off that, hamster on the wheel rat race.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a 7-step approach to help you break free from perfectionism. Number 1, take stock and inventory of your perfectionistic thoughts, behaviors, fears, and habits that all play in your life. Think about what I said earlier, mom and dad blueprints. Where do your thoughts come from? From them that maybe worked for you as a kid, but as an adult is not healthy for you. Take stock of the thoughts that you reinforce in your head. Your inner world creates your outer world, and your inner world encompasses the thoughts. Not just about work, but your whole world, relationships, sacrifice, guilt, people pleasing, putting others ahead of me, sacrificing sleep, food habits, comfort food, alcohol and drugs, acceptance. Try to challenge the thoughts. Look at the thoughts that make you want to strive to be perfect in certain categories, including your relationships, wanting to be that perfect partner, perfect parent, perfect colleague, someone everybody likes. Are you doing things that are draining you from being authentic and real? Number 2, very important, get aware. Acknowledge that the first step to treatment for yourself is to be aware of your symptoms and your life. Identify that the only way I'm going to change is by slowing down and recognizing, when do I spend a lot of time on people pleasing? When do I spend a lot of time on making things perfect? When do I spend a lot of time on sacrificing things for health to get something perfect? Number 3, identify the areas in your life that you struggle with that are related to fear, anxiety, self-doubt, where you're being really harsh on yourself, judging yourself that you're not perfect enough. C, I'm not perfect enough in my looks. I'm not perfect enough in my weight. I'm not perfect enough in my work ethic. I'm not perfect enough in my sales. I'm not perfect enough as a daughter-in-law, sister, friend, parent, partner. Try to look at all those areas that you struggle because you worry about not being lovable, not being good enough, not feeling capable of making people happy in these roles if you're not perfect. Number 4, exercise self-compassion. Be kind to yourselves. If you have children, you'll realize that we're so loving and kind and unconditionally loving to our kids, but we have these heavy-duty standards on ourselves. How are you role modeling to your kids unconditional love if you can't do it to yourselves? Be compassionate with yourself. Explore where your negative thoughts come from kindly. Notice self-limiting beliefs and narratives and stories that you have of what success look like, what good enough is enough. Notice your skills, your abilities, your attributes. Try to see what you have, then always looking at what you lack. And it's hard for us to, allow ourselves to just be authentic, but try to notice what are some areas of my life I can cut down the standards and be happy enough in who I am. And try to look at the child version of you. Do I bring in play? Do I bring in peaceful activities? Do I just sit and allow myself to rest instead of constantly doing to be perfect? Number 5, challenge your perfectionistic concerns. Challenge and reframe long-standing negative thoughts and self-limiting core beliefs that lead to self-doubt, shame, blame, and guilt, low self-esteem, feelings of inadequacy. When you challenge these negative thoughts, you'll see how long you've been, kind of at the disposal of them. Replace negative thoughts with more adaptive ones. Life is always about replacing one thought with the other. Replacing the negative, pressure-filled, looking for validation and not feeling good enough thoughts with more adaptive thoughts of I'm good enough, I'm lovable, I'm worthy, I'm compassionate. Learn to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. 6, set more realistic, healthy, and good enough goals. It doesn't have to be perfect, it has to be good enough. You can strive to know what perfection looks like, but be kind enough to be okay with good enough and getting through and delivering and moving forward. Set reasonable boundaries around your time and your energy. Our resources of energy are limited. We don't always have a lot of energy. We need to learn how to be very selective on where we put our time and energy. Trying to make something perfect, sometimes it is a waste of energy. And adjust your expectations on yourself and others so that you're not holding people to high standards, which means then you're holding yourself to high standards. I always believe there's a mirror. What we do to others, if we're holding people to perfect standards, we're also holding ourselves to it. There's always a mirror. So recognize that where am I doing it to others? And maybe I'm being hard on myself and I'm hard on others. Let me lower that down to adjust my expectations from others and expectations of myself. And number 7, seek the help of a mental health professional if you're having a hard time slowing your mind down from that chatter, that perfectionistic standard, or those overwhelming symptoms of anxiety that come with lowering your standards or feeling not good enough by, filling all these buckets. Learn to get help because we do the best we can with what we know. And sometimes bringing in professionals shows you a mirror of how to know how to do things better. Our parents do well, but sometimes you need to learn from other professionals at other levels to really bring you to a place of change. Learn that on your own, you can only take yourself so far. That's why self-help only is self-help. But when you have somebody to challenge yourself and to show you a mirror of what you're doing and the games you play with yourself to keep rationalizing bad behaviors and rationalizing perfectionism as healthy, when somebody shows you the truth of what costs are coming from that perfectionistic standards, you realize it's time to let go of that standard and bring in health, well-being, self-love, and compassion. And that's
Mhm.
my 7 steps.
Yeah, that's legendary. I mean, for most people, obviously, this will require some quiet time, right? Because obviously, you have to sit by yourself and not be stimulated by all kinds of other things, right? Because I guess that's what really takes people away from that. And then you're mentioning that if you're struggling with that, you can also work with someone to help you move through that process, right? Instead of, I guess, trying to do it all by yourself. Again, it's going to come down to each individual, right? And then based off of how you're feeling, you can kind of work off that. Yeah, go ahead.
So, Shaq, what's important to realize is even if you don't make the quiet time, I am fascinated by life to tell you, as a therapist, all human suffering is a catalyst for change. When you
Mm.
ignore your symptoms and you ignore the suffering that comes with an unhealthy lifestyle or an unhealthy standard of perfectionism, what you will find is your symptoms, physical, negative thoughts, and negative behaviors get louder and louder and louder till one day you have no choice but to deal with it. So when your
Mhm.
symptoms are really loud and you feel like you're in crisis or you're having anxiety every day or you can't sleep or your relationships are suffering or people want to leave you now and your children don't want to talk to you, when your anxiety and your symptoms are so loud because you're living unhealthy, you're forced to pause and reflect and work on yourself in order to better life. So I feel like even if you don't want to slow down, at some point, your symptoms will get you to a place where you have to slow down and change and conceptualize and reconceptualize what is working and what isn't working, and how do I change to be a better version of me at this point. Like I said, some of our perfectionistic standards at one age work for us to motivate us through school, motivate us to
Yeah.
get that job or prepare for that interview. And you might have even pulled an all nighter and sacrificed sleep and food. But when you do that repeatedly, that chronic stress on your body, if it turns into a lifestyle, at some point your body will rebel and you will have
Yep.
symptoms saying you are on the wrong path. Get back inside, slow down, bring in joy, bring in rest, and reconceptualize what your concepts of health is. When you do that, you will get healthier. And so we'll go inwards, whether we're forced to do it or we choose to do it. So why not choose to do it?
100%. 100%.